Let's work on the lace stripes on our Star-Spangled Beauty ladder quilt. The lace stripes are on page 33. Both the pink and the blue fabric have been backed with fusible interfacing, and I have the batting. I will also be using the lace from the embellishment kit, as well as wash away topping and tape. Let's get started on the lace stripes. I'm going to select embroidery and my USB, and I did not use software for these blocks, so I need to first open the quilting bundle, and I'm going to work on the little blue square first, and so I need the stars 12, and I need the 4x4 vertical design. And so when I come down to the 4x4, again, the vertical, because alphabetically it comes after horizontal, I will pick the second 4x4 and I will hit set. And then I need to go to add, back to my USB, and go to the embroidery file. And I need to find the little template. So this looks like it's the larger for the pink. Here's the 4x4 vertical lines that we need. I will hit set and embroidery. Now I am going to do both of these in a 5x7, so I am going to go to layout and move, and I'm going to move this all the way down to the bottom to save this stabilizer up at the top. I will select OK, and then I'm going to go to the minus plus needle so that I can skip a few of the steps, and we're ready to stitch out the placement of the batting. I will place my batting that's been sprayed with temporary adhesive spray, and I will put it right into that placement line. And then I am going to come back and I am going to again skip the next two steps. So I am using the down arrow to skip the tack down of the batting since mine is cut to size. If you have cut your batting larger, like the directions call for, then you would go ahead and run that tack down of the batting. I am also going to skip the next step, which is the placement for the fabric. And again, that is because it puts just a placement line about 1/4 of an inch outside of the batting. And you can see how much larger our fabric is. And it's just a step that I don't need for this. So I will just generally place this. And now I'm going to run the tack down for the fabric. And now I'll run the background quilting. Next is stitching the placement lines for the lace. Now that the placement lines have been stitched, we need to tape the lace pieces on. The thinnest piece, we just need one piece, and that will go in the center. The smaller of the two scallops will go next to the center, and then the larger scallop on the outside, and they will be in this direction. So the scallops will be facing towards the center. So let's start placing the smallest center piece of lace. I cut these just a little bit wider than the edge of the block so that I don't get any stitching over the tape. That would be a little bit more difficult to remove from the stitching. So I cut them just a little bit longer. I'm going to take this first small piece and I'm going to center it over that middle stitching line. And in order to check to see if this is centered, I'm just going to hold it and kind of pull back to see if the center lines up with this stitching line. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to tape it outside of that, or right next to this line. It will finish stitching right where the ends of these placement lines are, so I just don't want to cover that up. And then I'm just going to run down. I'm going to again hold it and then pull this piece back to make sure that I'm still looking like I'm centered, and that looks pretty good. Now the next will be the smaller of the two scallops, and with this one, this little cording like piece needs to be lined up to the placement line. And so I cut this so that I could try to have as equal amounts on, you know, so it looks a little bit more symmetrical. And so I'm going to try to center that. I need to line this little cording piece over. And then kind of the same, I'll run my hand down and hold it and make sure I'm on the right track. And then I can see if I'm lined up here. Now I do want to mention that I'm lined up with this stitching line, and my little scallops overlap that center, just of these little center scallops, just a tiny bit. In the pictures they don't overlap, but mine do. So now I'm going to take the next larger piece, and on this one, this little kind of the same little square cording piece is what we're going to line up with the stitching, not the scallops, this little piece right there. So I will first kind of center, and then I'm just going to hold it and see if I'm about right. That looks good. And on this one, it looks like the top of that scallop comes right to the edge of this cording for me. So of course I'm going to double check. I'm going to line those up so that they're kind of all in the same distance apart, and then I'm going to pull back and look to make sure that I am, and it looks like I'm about right on target. So I'm going to call that good. So this is what mine's looking like. And so I'm going to flip it around and do the same thing to the other side. So here is what mine look like. It'll go this way. So now the next thing I need to do is put the wash away topping on. So I've just cut a piece. I use the Sulky brand. It's kind of like plastic wrap. And so I am going to just make sure it covers all of the lace, and I will tape it. Let's go get this stitch down, see how we did. So I'm ready to stitch down the lace, and I am going to go ahead and lower my speed all the way. I don't think you really need to. We have the wash away topping, but it makes me feel better. So, especially since even though we have the wash away topping, all of this inside lace is, not attached to anything. And so I just will feel better, I think, if it's going slower. So let's get this stitched out and see how we did. So overall, this stitched out really good. I did have one little piece right here that you can see wasn't quite in the center like it is on all of the others. And, that's okay. Might put that towards the bottom, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. So if I do want to note that I can't tell if you can see on the video, it had us use the pearl color, which is kind of not really white, obviously. And I think if I were, and I debated this actually after it started the first one, but I didn't want to rip it out. So I might just do white so that it blends a little bit better. This maybe wouldn't have shown quite as much that it's not where it's supposed to be. But I, on the other hand, kind of like the off-white because it's kind of a vintagey look. So if you're concerned about maybe not being lined up perfect, similar to this little piece right here, then use white and then you probably won't notice it at all. So now the last step is doing some trimming guides, and this needs to be in a thread color that you can see. And so I just put in one of the dark blues. Now I can take the wash away stabilizer off, and then I am going to unhoop it, but I am not going to cut this off yet. And I'm just using a little needle, plastic needle that I use when I crochet to kind of help me lift this wash away. I very rarely have to wash away this plastic type of stabilizer. You can usually just, rip it and it comes right out. All right, so let's move on and hoop this for the pink one. So I just left that block attached like I did with the hearts, and I hooped for the pink, and we'll finish the pink and then get both of these cut to size. So I will go home and go back to my USB. I'll go back to the quilting bundle folder, and I need the Stars 12. I need the 4x6 vertical, so it will be the second of the two 4x6, and hit set. And now I will come to add, go back to the USB and the embroidery files folder. And I need the guide that's the taller one, the 5x7. That will be for our lace, and I will hit set. And I will hit embroidery. If I go to layout and move, I can nudge it down just a little bit. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Again, that's totally optional. I will hit the minus plus. I will stitch this out, and again, after the first step, which is the placement for the batting, I will use my down arrow to skip the next two steps, which is the tack down of the batting and the placement for the fabric, and then I will run the tack down of the fabric and the quilting. However, again, you can use all 5 steps of the quilting. So let's get this pink block started. As I was taking these out of the hoop and cutting the stabilizer, I realized I forgot to stitch that very last placement trimming guide. I was so excited to get this lace done that I just took it out and popped it out of the hoop. With that said, normally, very rarely do I actually stitch these trimming guides. And you can see on this blue one, it's right on the basting or the tack down. And this little tick mark, it just designates the center. And I think they did that because of all of this extra. It's kind of maybe a little bit more difficult to center it, you know, between the other sides of the tack down. So with this, I have the corners that I can, you know, when I put my orange pop ruler over, and so it'll be fine. So that's not the worst thing in the world. Again, a lot of times I don't stitch when they do have a trimming guide. So now it's time to get these trimmed up. I think, going to go and press these probably from the back, maybe the front if I use a pressing cloth, just to flatten them a little bit, although they look pretty good. I wanted to also point out that, again, that this background quilting goes into our seam allowance. So right here is the edge of the batting. This is the placement, and if you did the tack down of the batting, this is what this stitch is. This is the tack down of the fabric, and again, this went in to that seam allowance. So I am not going to try to cut my stabilizer out because there's already going to be some in. So to me, again, it's not worth the time for just, you know, 1/8 of an inch. So I will just trim these again from the front like I did the little hearts, but I am going to give them a quick press and then we can get these trimmed to size. So I have pressed the blocks and I have my little 4x4 orange pop ruler lined up. And I'm not sure if you can see, but there is a triangle in the center of this that lines up with those little tick marks that were the very last step. And so I have the ruler, of course, lined up with this stitch line and the arrow with the tick, so I know it's in the center. And I want to show you, if you can see, that the edge where it's going to cut right here lines up right with the corner of the tack down for the blue fabric. So for the pink, again, I didn't stitch out the trimming guide, but you can see the tack down, of course, easily on these edges, and then again on the corners I can see where the side has stitched. And so I'm going to take my 4.5 by 6.5, which this block needs to be cut to, and I am going to line the inside up first, of course, with the two that are easily seen, and then I will center it from left to right. And so I know that that's how my block needs to be cut.